Hello, my darlings, and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new here, my name is Miranda, and I am the Enchantress of Avalon. So for today's video, I have decided to talk about the Queen of Pentacles card from the tarot and how the archetype is so influential in my own personal life. I've written about this card a lot in the last year on my blog, so I will link a bunch of the different posts about the Queen of Pentacles energy and Queen of Pentacles archetype, how you can embrace it, and how you could find your own tarot archetype. Because over the last year, as I've gotten very connected to this particular tarot card, I've come to the conclusion that I think we all have an essential tarot archetype. There are 78 cards in the tarot. And I think of those 78 cards, everyone has one that just clicks for them, right? And I had a really hard time determining this for nearly a decade of reading tarot. I had cards that I was just drawn to, like the Empress and the High Priestess and the Queen of Cups and the Queen of Pentacles. But it took me really deepening my understanding of myself and deepening into the earth side of my spirituality and the green side of my spirituality and studying herbalism. And, you know, I do plan to soon go into my certification program. It's all clicking together for me. Last year, it all clicked together and it was, oh, of course it's the Queen of Pentacles. So I'm going to start with just telling you some of the keywords for this card. I actually just wrote some of them down, even though just give me a focus because I could talk about this card ad nauseum. So let's start. So keywords for the Queen of Pentacles card in different books and different decks will list keywords including generous, luxurious, good-natured, motherly, realistic, earthly desires, intelligent, giving, virtuous, good business, good negotiation, loves opulence and seeking security and freedom, nurturing, healer, down to earth, gratitude, social consciousness, and resourcefulness. And I think all of these do encompass aspects of the Queen of Pentacles. I'm surprised none of those, when I was writing down different things from different sources, basically it was just online sources for this. I just pulled up basic bullet points that different online tarot readers had said they associate with this card. I'm surprised that sexuality wasn't listed, and also sexuality, abundance, and fertility, which are all very deeply associated with this card as well. In many ways, the Queen of Pentacles as an energy and as an archetype has a lot in common with the traditional energy of the Empress. And it's kind of like one half of the Empress, if that makes sense. Because I feel that the 4 Queen cards, this is another conclusion I've drawn, the 4 Queen cards can be associated with either of the 2 major arcana divine feminine cards, the Empress or the High Priestess. So I would associate the Queen of Cups and the Queen of Wands with that High Priestess energy, whereas the Queen of Pentacles and the Queen of, I misspoke. The Queen of Cups and the Queen of Swords would be for the High Priestess energy. The Queen of Pentacles and the Queen of Wands would be for the Empress energy, because there's that passion, sexuality, warmth, vitality within the Queen of Wands. She's very gregarious, life of the party energy. She's very warm and passionate in there. And the and that's obviously part of the Empress, being that kind of ideal queen figure. And that very rooted in earth and in the material physical plane. Whereas the Queen of Pentacles is the fertility of the lands made manifest, abundance, and the sacred sexuality, and yes, motherhood. Those are 2 sides of the same coin. oftentimes I think we associate motherhood and maternal goddesses as being non-sexual, which makes no sense because sex is what leads to bearing children. But I think we want to consider motherhood to be a completely non-sexual thing, so much so that we negate the woman that she was before she became a mother. I think of the Queen of Pentacles embracing both sides of that. She's, yes, maternal, but she's also very, very sexual. She was very sexual, and that's how she became a mother. And she continues to be sexual even as a mother. And what is beautiful is that a lot of the Celtic goddesses, the ones that I'm so drawn to and that I build bonds with, are able to be both. They're mothers, but they're also still sexual beings. And okay, Morgana Le Fay, she had children in the legends, but it never negated the fact that she was still seen as a very sexual being. If we go over to Ireland, to the Irish myths, Maeve had many children, and she is a goddess of sexuality as well. And Anya had many children, but was still very much part of that sexual sovereignty energy within her. And there's a lot of other deep stuff with Anya. I have an entire video about her, which you could check out if you're interested. But in any case, we're seeing that where many people who are studying this don't want to see those two things as being able to exist together. It's like, oh yeah, you're very sexy, very sexual. Oh, but now you're a mother. You're no longer sexy or sexual. And that's just not true. And I think that's part of what connects me in with the Queen of Pentacles energy, is that you can be a sexual being and you could be a nurturer, and you don't have to sacrifice either aspect of the self, because they are not contradictory. They do coexist. I did want to highlight that because, like I said, a lot of the stuff that I was finding when people are just saying, oh, keywords for the Queen of Pentacles, it's not necessarily talking about that part. So I wanted to talk about that part a bit. And I also have laid down before me 7 different Queen of Pentacles cards from different tarot decks that I own. And there includes some of my favorites. So I want to highlight them and talk about the imagery on the cards and how that applies to the archetype itself. I'm going to start with the only technically non-humanoid card in the entire bunch, and that is the Queen of Pentacles from the Crow Tarot. I adore this deck. It is a very Morgana deck. It's all crows, so of course the Queen of Pentacles is a crow. So she is a crow surrounded in the background by apples. Very common on Queen of Pentacles cards to see fruit because of that abundance, fertility aspect. Apples are fruits of sexuality, and my favorite fruit of all time, of course. So I do love seeing that. This one also has a rabbit, which is another symbol of sacred sexuality and of fertility and abundance of the land. We have a full moon in the background, which, again, the full moon is associated with ovulation, with the ability to conceive, and with pregnancy. So that is very important. And then finally, I wanted to note that there's actually a little butterfly. Butterflies are symbols of the other world. And that brings in this whole fairy queen energy. And I definitely resonate with the Queen of Pentacles being a true fairy queen. So I'm very for the imagery on this card. I think it's beautifully done, and it does encapsulate a lot of Queen of Pentacles. The next one I'm going to talk about is going to be the Queen of Pentacles card from the Shadowscapes Tarot. Now, this deck I got away from using. It's a lovely deck. It's just one that I could read really well for other people. It doesn't read very well for me, though. It's just how it works. It happens sometimes. And this is a really gorgeous card. I mean, utterly beautiful. It's the Queen of Pentacles. I'm trying to not get glare on this. Okay, there we go. There's less glare if I put it right up close. Anyway, you can see she's actually formed of a tree. So we have that earth element energy really encapsulated in the card. And it feels very much like a dryad or a tree nymph, a tree fairy made manifest into this queen. So it is amazing. I adore the pentacle is a sun and a moon entwined as opposed to just a traditional pentacle image. I love the serenity in her face. I don't know if you can really see it, but if you look up this image for clarity online, she's a very serene look to her, and she is holding in her hand a leaf. It's a leaf in an orb. So she's literally manifesting this fertile aspect of the tree. The tree bears leaves and bears fruit. So it's gorgeous. There is tons of green and gold on this card, which I associate both green and gold with the energy of the Queen of Pentacles. So I adore this card for that energy, and just it's a beautiful, beautiful card. The next two I'm going to talk about are examples of the Queen of Pentacles not being called the Queen of Pentacles. I have mentioned this in different blog posts about the card. Is she's the most often differently named queen of all of the tarot queens, because the Pentacle suit is the most oftenly changed name for a suit. Because I do collect tarot decks. I've read tarot for going on a decade now. I see the patterns, and it's really easy to change pentacles to something else that has a similar energy to make it a little less traditionally witchy, I guess. And this next one is from the Arthurian Tarot, and the Arthurian Tarot uses stones as the pentacles, so she is the Stone Queen. But my favorite thing about this card, I was just talking to my husband about this before I recorded this video, is she gives me major Snow White vibes. And everyone knows Snow White is my second favorite fairy tale of all time. I've talked ad nauseum about how much I love Sleeping Beauty first and Snow White second. So I do love that she gives me major Snow White energy. It is a wintry scene. She does have dark hair. She is sitting at a window. There is a bird. There's so many things that just scream Snow White. And beyond that, the fact that it's winter is often associated with the earth element, especially when we're doing a seasonal aspect to a tarot deck. And she is holding a mirror. She's holding a bird. She's very much embodying this abundance. The mirror she holds is gold, and it's almost an abundance of knowledge, because scrying into a mirror gives us knowledge. And I just really gravitate towards the imagery on this card. It's lovely. And having her wearing red as one of her colors is, again, that sexuality and fertility aspect. She also has a purple scarf around her head, and there are purple flowers on her dress beneath the red. You see purple flowers. Purple is a symbol, of course, of sovereignty and of queenship. I just think it's really beautifully done. The next card is also another name for the Queen of Pentacles. In this case, she's called the Queen of Coins. This comes from the Joie de Vivre Tarot, and it was my first major tarot deck that I studied with, that I gravitated towards. So she has a lot of imagery we're seeing on other Queen of Pentacles. She is holding a coin that has a heart on it. That's the love, the romance, what have you. She has a little tiny bunny-like creature. It's kind of like a rabbit, but this is very otherworldly wonderland kind of energy to this deck. So you have that. She is sitting on a mushroom that's giving us some of the earthy energy to that. And I just think it's very whimsical, but it does still embody what the Queen of Pentacles is. And then we're to my final three. And there is the Queen of Pentacles from the Llewellyn Tarot. And she is probably the most traditional to people who are familiar with the Rider-Waite-Smith concept of the Queen of Pentacles. Imagery wise, she is a queen sitting in a gorgeous field. There are flowers and just abundantly growing wheat at her feet. She is wearing red, again, the symbol of sexuality. There is gold in this card, symbology of the abundance that she manifests. And there's a tree in the background, so you have the earth element, along with the wheat is obviously also the earth element. I love this. I think it's very pretty. And I gravitate much more towards this particular style of the card versus the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith style. I'm not going to be talking about that card in this discussion. It's a lovely card. It's just not the imagery I gravitate towards. And then my final two are two of my all-time favorite Queen of Pentacles cards, and included in like my favorite deck that I'm currently using for myself. So I'm going to start with what's probably just my favorite Queen of Pentacles card ever from the Hidden Realm Tarot, or Tarot of the Hidden Realm, I think is the actual way to phrase. Anyway, it is this very gorgeous card. She is like this autumnal fairy queen, again, holding an apple. I'm trying to get the glare off her. There we go. And she has this flowing, fiery red hair. She looks luscious and abundant and fertile. She has that energy just radiating off of her. And this was the deck I was working with most when I started really having the Queen of Pentacles energy jumping out at me, which is probably why she's still my favorite image of the Queen of Pentacles. But again, she's just absolutely gorgeous. And then finally, the deck I'm currently using most is the Sacred Circle Tarot, which was released originally in the 90s. And of course I bought, a brand new deck, but I also had to purchase the companion, the thick book, separately because they're not giving the full book anymore. So I purchased an old used copy of it. And in this deck, it's called Discs. The Pentacle suit is Discs. So she's the Queen of Discs. And it is just absolutely everything I want in a Queen of Pentacles card, in that it is so green, so lush, so verdant, and there's also a lot of gold in there. And there is the keyword of expression on the top of the card. One thing I love about this deck is that it has keywords on most of the cards, except for the major arcana. It's just the major arcana and then they're numbered. But the other cards have keywords that are right on the card, which I think is a great addition. And this deck is very, very herbal. So there's a lot of herbal and plant lore built within the deck, which is super fun. And so we see like ivy and moss creeping up around here. This is the Queen of Pentacles, but in this she's called the Queen of Discs. Now, I do hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please do like, comment, subscribe, and check out my blog, whiteroseofavalon.life, for even more content. Bye now.